Join us and help us continue to support the many talented people of our community. Learn how to get your business highlighted on La Crosse Local. Go to lacrosselocal.com and click on Advertise. The Frozen River Film Festival is taking place February 5th through 12th in Winona, Minnesota. Nearly 50 feature and short-form documentary films that will take you to the heart of current events, the forefront of social change, and distinct cultures in an increasingly global community. For tickets and more information, visit frff.org. Join us at the La Crosse Winter Roots Festival Saturday, February 11th at the La Crosse Center. We'll celebrate Wisconsin favorites in music, cuisine, local beer, and spirits. Grab tickets at lacrosselocal.com. We connect with the Feast of Crispian, a nonprofit organization that brings professional actors and veterans together to strengthen the emotional resources they need to overcome trauma and reintegration issues. We talk storytelling, Shakespeare, powerful transformations, and where people can find out more. You can find more conversations, food reviews, weekend picks, live music, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is La Crosse Local.
Well, my name is Mark Ard, Jr., native Wisconsin, born in Wisconsin Rapids, grew up in Necedah, Castle Rock, Petenwell Lakes area. I joined the Marines right about a year after high school in 1999. Did about 7.5 years active duty, tour in Iraq. And then fast forward to about just a couple of years ago, I was approached by a friend of mine to participate in a theater workshop for veterans. And I guess I should just caveat this and say that I've never really had an interest in theater or Shakespeare. You know, it's always been kind of like a passive thing for me personally. But here in Milwaukee, a few years ago, there's a group of people who are very enthusiastic about Shakespeare and theater and acting and drama. And just to give you some background on them, they also happen to be professors and lecturers at UW-Milwaukee Peck School of the Arts in the theater department. So these are people that are very immersed, have decades worth of experience in Shakespeare and teaching, acting, and all that kind of stuff. And it just so happens that one of them also is a Vietnam veteran. And they came up with the bright idea to use their skills and their what they teach to apply it as a modality to help veterans who are struggling with PTS, anxiety, depression, and so forth. It's a way for veterans to tell their stories and to connect with their emotions and to alleviate their emotions through the language of Shakespeare and through the dialogue that takes place, you know, to kind of relieve them of their emotional suffering and traumas. I mean, that's really it in a nutshell.
What was the original sort of impetus for the group? Like, how did it all start? Get kicked off?
You know, I think it was a group of local theater lovers that have some connections with the veteran community here locally. I don't know exactly who can take credit for the idea to put together veterans and theater, or specifically Shakespeare. They started out canvassing a whole group of local veterans to participate in some workshops, and that was back in like 2015, 2016. I came on board not long after. You know, a lot of things are just word of mouth. And, you know, the veteran community anywhere in the country, all over the country, is a very small, you know, tight-knit, highly networked community. So word travels pretty quick. So I think the impetus really was just, you know, we all hear about this unbelievable suicide rates that are going on and have been going on, you know, for quite some time. And you know, everyone was looking and trying to think outside of the box about what can we do, and this just kind of was like a grassroots thing that just spontaneously came together. All the you know, it's one of those things that all the things kind of fell into place at the right time, and the right people were in the right place, and it just kind of blossomed.
You know, I've been reading up on it these past couple of days. How does it work? You know, I understand, like, you know, they have the stories and then they're kind of unpacked and kind of put into these Shakespeare sort of plays or whatever they like. What is the process like?
So the process is, so what we do is, and we try to keep this as informal and as open and as relaxing as we possibly can, you know, because we're dealing with a very vulnerable population, veterans, you know, it can be a difficult population to work with. So we try to make sure that we make a very open space. We get a group of veterans together we go through and we have them individually talk about their experiences if they're willing to. We don't lord over them in any way. It's completely open. You can come and you can share. And so as we go through the process of sharing stories, talking through experiences, whatever that may be, the facilitators, the Shakespeare experts are listening attentively. And once we have kind of gotten some of these stories out from these vets, we go into the lexicon of Shakespeare and we find scenes, plays, and characters that most closely fit with what the veteran explained as their experience, right? So if, a scene out of Henry V with Cassio and Iago are arguing about something or whatever it is that they're doing, Romeo and Juliet, doesn't matter. Anything that's in Shakespeare that most closely aligns with the veteran experience, we try to put those two together, and we give them we have a workshop, and we give them basic acting skills and theater skills, and then we have them act out the scene. And what this does, because here's the thing, and I know this personally, I know a lot of veterans who just cannot talk about their experiences. I mean, they get this big lump in their throat, and it can be very, very difficult for guys and gals to talk about what they've experienced because of how painful and traumatic it was. So the idea is to give them a lexicon, a set of language, and a way to express and to relieve themselves of that trauma without actually talking about it themselves. Does that make sense? So in other words, they're playing a part and they're using the language of Shakespeare and they're telling their own story, but through the character of Shakespeare. You see? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so the payoff is, and here's the payoff, and I'll try to keep this as condensed as possible. So aside from all of the administrative and background stuff that I do for the organization, I did have the opportunity to rehearse and perform in our theater festival that we had here in Milwaukee a couple of years ago. And when I got done with my part, which was not very long, I got a standing ovation, which for me really connected and brought home exactly the value of what it is that we do. Because here was a circumstance in which a veteran is expressing his or her story to a public audience, right? And I should probably back up and explain how we get to this point. But when the audience gave me a standing ovation, I understood the power of what this is. Because typically what happens, veterans, you don't hear much from veterans unless you're with veterans or you're a veteran and you're with other veterans. You know what I'm saying? General society you don't really hear much about it. The feedback that veterans typically get from family, community, and everyone, and I can say this from experience as well, is the message that they get is, thank you very much. We're very appreciative, but, here, take your pills, go to the VFW and do like your grandfathers did and just deal with it. We don't want to hear about it anymore. Well, this platform kind of provides an opportunity for the community and the veterans to share stories together and in a way that's artistic, in a way that, because Shakespeare kind of provides a buffer between the veteran and the community. It offers a mechanism for the two to come together so the veteran can unload their stories, and share it around and not feel like they have to carry that baggage around with them all the time. And the audience gets a bonus because they get, a great performance and they also get to hear stories, but in a very refined and sophisticated way. So I think it's a real benefit all around. So just to kind of, what we do is we have weekly classes locally here in Milwaukee. We do monthly or usually bi-monthly 3-day weekend intensives at the Milwaukee VA PTSD inpatient program at the campus on National Street here in Milwaukee at the regional hospital. And then as we go through the process of working with a set of veterans over a period of time, from their stories, we create a whole play, an entire production based completely on the stories of the veterans. So like in 2019, yeah, and we do more than that. But so in 2019, before COVID, of course, when we had our theater festival, Feast of Crispian developed an original production piece based on what the veteran stories and brought it to an audience. So It's a really innovative, outside of the box, grassroots kind of program for veterans.
It seems like, a very interesting alternative therapy that using creativity to kind of solve some internal issues.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, you kind of shared your story of, in some ways, I don't know if it's transformation, but having people stand up after they listen to your story. Yeah. Can you share any sort of, like a powerful maybe transformation that happened afterward with yourself or another vet?
I think just being there in the moment and having the opportunity to be in front of a public audience and being afforded the opportunity to lay bare all of my vulnerabilities and my emotions and just really kind of like channeling all of that kind of anger and rage, all that baggage that was left over from 8 years in the Marines and tour in Iraq and all that, and seeing the response from the audience and then how it was received by the veterans, for me personally was amazing, because that was the moment that I realized that this was something that had some value, had a lot of potential. A bit of a challenge to get out there and to try to explain to people, because when people hear Shakespeare and veterans within the same paragraph, they don't really get it. So you got to, but I think after you explain it, and especially if you see what we do, it really resonates. But as far as transformational, I mean, yeah, man, I never would have thought that I would be doing anything with Shakespeare. It just kind of fell in my lap, and I'm really glad it did, because it's opened up a lot of things for me that I never really realized. So
to me, it kind of makes sense. I mean, if Shakespeare talked a lot about war.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seems like it'd be a good correlation between the two to easily kind of go back and forth. So veterans can get involved. How can people, I'm not a veteran, how can I help out? Is there ways I can donate or?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we're a very small nonprofit. Our annual budget never creeps beyond maybe 250,000 a year at most. We're a little mom and pop shop here. But yeah, if you're interested to learn more, definitely go to our website. We could always use a little extra change in our pockets here because we're a small nonprofit. So if you're interested in donating, website is www.feastofcrispian.org. And the Feast of Crispian is right out of Henry V, the famous speech, the Band of Brothers speech and everything. So, which is really phenomenal. And we got to do that too, performing the Band of Brothers, Henry V. So that's our opening to our productions. You have a bunch of veterans doing the opening Feast of Crispian. It's really neat. It's a lot of fun.
And also, are you trying to eventually kind of expand, maybe take this on the road to other bases?
I mean, obviously COVID threw a huge monkey wrench in everyone's machinery. So yeah, our plans were we did have workshops in Madison, at the Madison Middleton VA. We have a group out in Seattle because one of our founders are from the Seattle area. So sometimes we maybe once a year go out to Seattle to do a workshop out there. Our aspiration before COVID was to take the festival, which we wanted to do at least annual or maybe biannually, and we would take it around to other places in the country, like Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center was one of our great ambitions. But, COVID and the way things kind of fell with that. The festival was a 3-day event, and what we do is we bring in other veteran theater groups from across the country, and we do one or two performances over a 2-3 day interval. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating, man.
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.